David? Is that you?
Who are you? What are you doing on this show?
What happened to you? You look so much older.
Do I? Is it because I have reading glasses on now?
Oh my god.
That I have to wear now?
Your eyes are large behind those.
I know, it's terrifying. I've just realized, I could use a reading glass.
You've got readers now.
Got readers.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's not
Is
great.
this my future? I thought that was in your 50s. Are you 50?
No, I'm almost 45. Hey, wait, let's not take too many shots at me for being old or weird or whatever. You just a moment ago quickly got up from the desk while I could see you on camera.
Are you going to talk about my pants?
You said, oh crap, got up from the desk. And can you describe for people what you're wearing?
Okay, I work at home now, which means...
Oh, I can tell.
Which means business on top, party on the bottom. I just wear bed pants. No, I just wear bed pants all day, and I put on like a reasonable button down on top. No one can tell.
But you are wearing like a blue,
this is a bad outfit.
Gray, blue, yellow plaid, and then your pants on the bottom are a like Christmas themed plaid, like red, green, white plaid.
Yeah, that's correct.
Do you not leave the house to get lunch or something? Like, what are you doing?
I need to start. This is day 5. Okay, day 5 of new job, day 5 of working at home. I'm just kind of basking in it right now, but my legs are going to atrophy if the only walking I do is from the bed to my desk. So I'm going to have to start taking some lunch walks, hit the gym, that kind of stuff. So yes, this is if I'm doing this next week, Dave, then we can have a real conversation about the state of
I can't
my
believe
existence.
The mixing of the plaid. How do you get? I mean, I couldn't even do it. I couldn't do it. You know that I like sleep in jeans, right? You know I do that.
I mean, do you still actually do that?
No, I never actually did that, other than college. Okay. You know, and shortly after college and in my 30s and
yeah, and last week. Hello and welcome to episode 257 of the Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Shane, here in Denver, Colorado. With me on the line, it's the one and the only in the room, the Godfather, Dave Harbarger. Dave.
There's nobody for me to interrupt.
You can interrupt me.
I guess. That's not as good when you're the only person I'm talking to.
It takes 2 to make a thing go right in 2024.
Yes, but it takes 3 to make an interruption.
Ooh, you can. It's like 2 is like a one-on-one interruption, just rude and not.
Yes.
Okay, not conversational.
Yes, and in 3, it's like, hey.
Oh yeah, let me butt in here.
Spicy.
Such a
I gotta get my thoughts off.
Dave, how have you been? How is your new year?
It's busy. We're trying to start off busy over here.
Oh really?
Lots going on.
A lot of Lego building.
We did do a lot of Lego building. But also, work is heating up as it does sometimes at the beginning of the year.
It's so hot right now.
You have a new job too?
Yeah,
this work.
Man, it's a big change. I'll tell you what. It's novel. It's a novel job. We'll see how this thing pans out. But, so far so good. But it's definitely different. Okay. It's weird. Right. It's weird being at home, as we talked about in the intro. I am wearing bed pants.
Nobody needs to hear about the pants more.
Yeah.
Enough with the pants. But we don't want to tarnish your image. But you know who else has been working hard and can work hard for you, Shane?
Tell me.
Heavy Play. Oh, Heavy Play is a new.
That's what you surprised me with.
Gaming accessory brand that'll improve your gameplay and your game day. Their playmats, deck boxes, and card sleeves feature enhanced ergonomics, mobility, and protection for you, your cards, and your game.
Can we talk about how good these deck boxes are in terms of protection? Because I know a lot of deck boxes.
Tell me.
I saw the eyebrows raise. So what I like about these, right, is that they have nice inners, like nice lining on the inside, right?
Yeah, just to be clear, Heavy Play has 2 different boxes.
Oh, good point. Yes.
That maybe you're forgetting to talk about here. We have the RFG deck box, which is a more plastic construction.
Let's talk about these differences. We don't do this enough.
Yeah, and we have the RFG deck box Max.
The Max is
which
sweet.
is kind of like I don't know how to describe what the materials are for it, but it's like it's got a flip top. It's got a little more kind of like, it's got a different vibe to it, which I like quite a bit.
Yeah, I like the flippy top. That's what I was going. Not only kind of like the nice inside, but the little flippy thing that is very magnetic. It's not going to like randomly come open when you have it on the table. I like how it folds back and like magnets to itself to keep the flap out of the way. I love stuff like that. But yes, so the magnets.
These magnets aren't coming open, buddy.
No,
these magnets are not coming open.
But the magnets do keep the things together. We could do a snap, snap, snappy, but we don't have the stuff on us right now. Your dice boxes, your deck boxes, your play mat, they all snap together, carry it around in a single hand, slide it into your backpack, whatever you want to do. You can perhaps get them at your LGS, or preferably, we have a new code, the Dive Down 2024 in numbers at heavyplay.com gets you 10% off of your order there.
That's right. Thank you for your support, Heavy Play. Also, Randy from Heavy Play asked us to mention that he will be at
Denver.
Can't
wait to see Randy. I will see Randy in Denver. Give him a high five.
Meet him in person.
That's going to be sick.
Yep, it's DreamHack Denver, February 9th to February 11th. You can go check him out. You can check out the products if you're going to be there, see him in person, give him a test run, all that kind of stuff. He loves hearing that you heard about him from the Dive Down for sure. We get emails from him. And then also he will be in MagicCon Chicago, for the MagicCon, along with Shane will also be there, and I'll be there February 23rd to the 25th. That is Heavy Play.
Yeah, going to be sweet. Dave, this week's show.
We are back to work. Is what this week's show is. We are back to work.
Oh, speaking of episodes.
Yeah.
I appreciated the kind ribbing that you all threw at me last week on the completely rogue, left field, not Shane approved, timeless cube episode. Timeless
I don't know
/
what
cube.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
I was complicit in that for once. Usually it's Stan going rogue by himself, but it's this time we were definitely both part of it. And Devin, too, to be honest. Devin was instigated as well.
No, it was a fun episode, so good work. But what are we doing this week?
So this week we are back to work, though. It's just me and Shane. Stan is in traveling from one time zone to another. Devin had a long weekend commenting on NRG, and so it is Shane and I, and we are going to talk about something people have been wanting us to talk about for the last few weeks, and that is the state of Modern in early 2024. What is going on? We had 2 huge tournaments this week, or 3, potentially even huge tournaments, depending on how you want to think about it. We had an MTGO Showcase Challenge. We had Star City Games Cincinnati, and also
Queen City.
A 20K and a 10K. Yep, home Skyline Chili, where Shane and I cut our teeth going to college and doing a whole lot of other
Grater's
stuff.
Ice Cream.
That's right.
The beer selection at IGA.
Get at us. All those things. IGA, get at us.
Yes.
I would sponsor our podcast.
I would love a sponsorship from IGA.
The regional grocery store chain that is IGA. You want to know what we think about grief still existing? You want to know how we feel about Amulet still existing? Or maybe Merfolk even being good? This is the episode for you.
I won't be talking about that last part.
Oh, we should a little.
I mean,
a little. But first, some housekeeping, please.
All right. We've got a new patron in Brian B. Brian B., thank you for becoming a citizen of the Dive Down Nation. We appreciate you. No increased tiers. We haven't had a new review on Apple Podcasts for like 2+ months, but you know where people are popping off is...
Oh, I know, because I personally review and publish each of their comments.
The comments in Spotify, not just the regulars this week. We've got Howell J, PT, John Bus, Edward W, Kieran W, Lurie F, Adam B, Brendan DZ, Cameron S, Zach G, and Basti.
We got 2 more even just now. We got... I approved them and their names disappeared. One of them is Dark Depths and another one is Tetra Alta.
Sweet.
Within the last 4 to 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
People be listening.
Nice change of... Yeah, a lot of people... Well, we did ask a question. We said, hey, on the last episode, could you let us know if you think that we could... are there other things that you want us to talk about other than Modern and Pioneer for the most part? I even put a poll up as part of our Spotify launch to see what people said. And guess what people said, Shane?
The poll, 133 votes. Here it is in order of voting.
Yes, 32% people said Modern is the format they would like us to most cover. People could select more than one, so this number is not going to add up to 100%, by the way. 24% said Pioneer. 15% said Timeless.
It went down since I did these notes like 20 minutes ago.
A little bit. 10% of people said Cube. 13% of people said Standard, which I threw in there as a little bit of a curveball to try to check us. Standard coming in 4th place in this poll, above Cube. And then the people who are willing to come along on whatever ride we have in mind, only 4.4% of people.
I will know one of those was me because I just wanted to see the results without sullying the waters, muddying the waters. So, yeah. What do you call this? A stay in your lane poll?
I would call this a snapshot of stay in your lane a little bit, and that's fine. I think most of the comments from the people that Shane just talked about in the reviews on Spotify and on, we got some very nice notes over email. It was a little bit like when I asked for people to subscribe on YouTube and we got a surge of people. Yeah. We did ask a specific question. We got specific answers from probably 20 people across Discord, Spotify, email, Twitter, other places. Most people said, hey, we don't mind if you guys pepper in things, but we want to hear you talk about Modern and Pioneer the most.
I think that's what we want to talk about the most, probably.
Yeah, truly, it is what we want to talk about the most, and that's what we're here for.
But here's my call to action this week. Can we get 135 people to join the Patreon for as little as $1 a week, which helps support us, helps keep us going.
Now that's not going to happen. Well, 135.
That's how many votes we got. If I can get 1% of that, that's 1.5 new citizens of the Dive Down Nation. You get stuff sent to you. You get to join the Discord. You get to help keep us going, help support us, and we truly appreciate all you all out there who have for so long. You can also support us at our store, thedivedown.com/store. Get some swag there. You can go to Mana Traders. You can use, this code is no longer functional. The Dive Down 23 is not a functional Mana Traders plug. So,
are you sure?
I am pretty darn sure. I think it goes out this week. So we're going to try something new because it's behind the scenes, y'all. So the Mana Traders code frequently changes pretty often, and we have such a standing relationship with Mana Traders. We're like, hey, can you make this code good for like 6 months? And I think I have found that when the code changes more often, it sort of gets picked up by various sites or something like that, and we maybe get increased use. So go to thedivedown.com or check the show notes to get the latest Mana Traders code if you want to sign up and get 10% off of your first 2 months there. So we'll try this for a minute, see how it works. And if it doesn't, then we'll just have a more permanent code for the Mana Traders.
All right.
And that is that.
That is that.
All right,
so
Dave.
So where do we want to start? It's 2024.
I always like talking.
What is Modern?
I like talking about paper before I like talking about Magic Online. So let's talk about something like SCG Cincinnati. Then let's talk about maybe the showcase, and then we can then maybe take a big picture, zoom out a little bit, talk about what we are seeing in the raw data since like the Modern bans. I want to hear your takes about how you feel Modern is going and maybe where it should be right now, Dave. So I'm hyped to have that conversation. What do you think?
I'll have to come up with some takes, I guess. I guess the only thing I wanted to say, wow, it's not like I don't have to do that every week on the show. One thing I do want to say is just so we understand for scale, these two tournaments, reasonably sized, although there was obviously just another day of Twitter discourse, this time about the Star City Games attendance number. It hit 297 players. I don't really have an opinion about that. It does seem like a small amount of players for a 20K. That's fine. I've seen the math. It had, for our purposes, it had 300 players. That's all I have to say about it.
So what, you can't just say this is good EV. You have to say this is somehow indicative of the fall of modern Magic or something?
Anytime you're close to Skyline Chili is good EV in my opinion. Oh, so it would have been a joy to be attendance at this tournament. Maybe have Skyline, maybe have Adriaticos, maybe a Zips burger. Oh
man, Dave, I was literally describing to my wife and my nephew just yesterday about the Adriaticos Bearcat and how it was the party staple all through college. The spicy sauce, the deep pan.
We got the calzones in my room for what it's worth.
So many calzones.
Always got the calzones. Anyway, yes, Adriaticos, let me hear ya.
Get at us.
Yeah. So we will start with that, but SCG Cincinnati, 297 players, MTGO Showcase Challenge, 343 players. The tournament that took QPs to get into had more players than SCG Cincinnati for what it's worth.
You don't have to drive or fly anywhere for that. And you know how far away that airport is.
2 mismatched pieces of plaid, if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, you can just sit. Yeah. And Dave, you and I have both flown in and out of Cincinnati.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's nightmarish.
I'd rather fly into Dayton and then like drive down to Cincinnati. I feel like Dayton is as close as the CVG is to actual Cincinnati. I could be wrong. That might just be an emotional distance, but
I really hope people like the Shane Dave dynamic this week, because they're just getting a lot of it. Just
just getting a lot of Ohio.
Yes. Oh, let's talk about grade school. Let's talk about discovery. Let's talk about reading Calvin and Hobbes and doing puzzles and tangrams again.
I think we're at 18 minutes in this show. I think people have had enough, and they're ready for us to talk about Modern.
Are they? Well, they're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. SCG Cincinnati 20K. Here is the supposed metagame. Now, we did not correct this, so I don't know for sure. I will say that later on, we have a unified win rate to look at from mtgdex.net, which is helpful between a couple of different tournaments at the SCG. But here's what was on MTG Melee.
Yeah.
Pulled right out of the page. Number 1 deck, 14% of the field, Team of Rhinos.
Yeah, doing things.
14% of the field, Shane.
I'm no longer surprised by this. Like
14? That's high.
Yeah, I mean, if you want some early takes, it's safe. It's like a 50+% deck. You only really have to live in fear of like Living End showing up big. Everything else, you probably have a good to okay shot at defeating.
Yeah, I will say from my count. Okay, so the match win rate reported on Melee was 54%.
Sweet.
Basically, 53.98. But it only had 1 pilot in the top 8 from what I saw. However, 8 of the top 32 were Rhinos.
A quarter of the top 32.
Quarter of the top 32 being Rhinos is pretty interesting, I think. Means that it went well and it went pretty deep.
Yeah. Yeah, what I thought I do in this section a little bit was kind of check in on the decks too, like how people are building these, if there's variations, if there's experimentation, and Rhinos and much of everything else, to be secret, spoil it for you all.
Spoilers.
This is pretty stock right now. Like there's just a few main deck and sideboard flex items, like the removal of Fury. I think in removing that option, like just force people's hands to Tashamina's Tidebinder, Flame of Anor, the deal. Like it's interesting to me that there's like 2 Mutavault and a Gemstone Caverns is pretty stock. Like you have 3 potentially colorless lands in your deck. Pretty dangerous looking.
That seems so brutal.
Right. It doesn't seem like it's hurting anybody. Maybe just the existence.
I mean, it's what Stan plays too.
Right.
Like I was playing him a couple weeks ago in paper. We played, I bought a new deck. I think I mentioned it on the last episode. I might not have, but I bought Hardened Scales in paper.
Oh, my man. You have the Agatha Soul Cauldrons.
Yes, that's part of why I did, was because I was like, I don't think this card is going down in value anytime soon.
Yeah,
so
might be one of those $80 ones.
Well, and Ravager is cheap too. So I bought like Darksteel Ravagers and stuff. Like I had a bunch of credit at Card Kingdom, so I just used it basically. But I was playing Rhinos versus Scales, which isn't like the best matchup in the world for me to be practicing. But that was what Stan had too. I was like, man, two Mutavaults. I saw a list. I mean, maybe we're going to do all of our analysis now. We can talk about the results in the MTGO thing separately. But I saw a list in the MTGO challenge that came in 7th place, had 3 Mutavaults. 3.
Dang. I guess sometimes you just really want a wizard besides the Tashamina's Tidebinder. Is that not enough? Is that not enough of a wizard for you?
I guess not. I guess casting Flame of Anor for 2 modes is just a hell of a drug.
Yeah. I mean, it's not in there for the red anymore. You know what I mean? Like you're not pitching to Fury. So it's just considered a good enough card that, you want the 3 mana.
I totally agree. I mean, it was kind of crushing to play against for sure. A number of times with Stan, it's a powerful card. I do think it's funny, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but this card is like, is it Cryptic Command?
3-mana Cryptic Command?
I mean, not really, but like sometimes I feel like, wow, we're really contorting ourselves to just get Cryptic Command in here.
I mean,
but
having that red pip, the red pip is sweet because you get to do direct damage.
Yeah, and kill Shieldred.
Yes.
Yeah, so exactly. Anyway, Rhinos, pretty stable, but it's fully a Tidebinder deck now, if anybody was curious. But other than that, that's what Rhinos is right now. And it did pretty well in SCG Cincinnati, but not like super amazing. But it was the number 1 deck in the field somehow.
Rhinos weekend. I mean, this is actually a pretty good Rhinos weekend to be like 54%. So I'll take it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. What is next on the list here? Murktide.
A very Murktide weekend to you, Dave. 47.4% win rate and about 8% of the field. So
yes.
And Murktide's looking pretty stock.
I will say it's a big cut here between 14% of the field and 8% of the field. Like yes,
it is.
It's a pretty big difference there. I will say I have been looking at Murktide lists a good amount the last couple of days. I did not really see anything that made me go, wow, someone's doing something different than Murktide. And that is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It was just worth noting.
How long has Change the Equation been in this deck?
That's the only card that I saw that was kind of like, oh, wow, a main deck changed the equation. You really want to target Titan was what I kind of thought.
Yeah.
That's
wild. That's some metagaming.
Yes. That's people expecting a lot of Titan for sure. And, it works against Crashing Footfalls, too, but like most of the counter magic already worked against Crashing Footfalls anyway. So.
And speaking of Titan, that's our third most popular deck with 19 copies, about 6.9% of the field.
Well, sorry, let's go back to Murktide real quick.
Fine.
Did you save the win rate?
Yeah, 47.4%.
Yeah.
A very Murktide weekend.
Not great.
No. I mean, this is a trend we will talk about across a variety of tournaments and results. We have a Titans third place, about 6.9% of the meta game. Nice. That is in a 51.7% win rate. I mean, this is another pretty stock deck at this point. Like, this is a 1-ring deck at this point. There are always 4 1-rings. There's, always one map, exploration map, an expedition map. Thank you. This is like, these deck is what you expect. There's like maybe one spelunking. Ooh.
Yeah, it's sometimes spelunking occasionally, but it's your 1-ring Urza Saga Titan deck. Yeah.
It's good. The 1-ring is good in this deck. I still remember facing this down at the RCQ I played a few months ago, and I was just like, oh, they drew a lot of cards, and they could win out of nowhere. Like, I mean, in a sort of combo deck where you can win out of nowhere, playing 1-ring seems pretty good.
Yeah, I will say, again, to blend our discussion between Magic Online and here, because why not? I guess here we don't have to talk about it twice. Amulet won the challenge that we were going to talk about, the Showcase challenge. And what was interesting, I didn't get to see this play, but apparently one of the key cards in the sideboard in Amulet, quote unquote, supposedly was It's Quinth.
Oh, it's Quinth.
It's Quinth.
Okay. Is that like a pitch card?
Firstborn. No, it comes into play and deals 2 damage to another creature. And guess what that creature probably is?
Magus of the Moon.
Yeah.
Ragavan.
Yeah. So, Magus of the Moon. But
Magus
51.72% of the match win rate.
Yeah, of the match win rate.
7% of the field. Yeah.
Okay, we got to talk about Yawgmoth, right? Because so Yawgmoth is one of the best decks in Modern right now. And perhaps underplayed. Maybe if this was an NRG weekend tournament, we'd see more Yawg heads come out of the woodwork. But this was tied with Amulet Titan, 6.9% of the meta, but it had a fairly convincing 56.2% win rate. And Yawgmoth is another deck that, since the printing of Soul Cauldron, it has pretty much stabilized around that build. There's no more like 1-ring experimentation that I noticed. I don't know if you saw anything, but
no, I agree. They pretty much all look the same to me, and they're all built around Cauldron. Yeah,
but it's doing the thing. It is doing the Yawgmoth thing, which is a good thing.
Yeah, the most interesting thing I saw, to be honest, was the Yawgmoth list that placed 15th place in the Magic Online Showcase Challenge had 2 copies of Diabolic Intent in it. I was like, really?
Diabolic.
Okay.
Is that like an edict? What the heck is Diabolic Intent?
It's sacrifice a creature, draw a demonic tutor.
That's it. Okay. I mean,
Yes.
that seems, I mean, I'm surprised it's not in Yawgmoth yet already because it seems like a perfectly good card. What's the mana value on that?
2.
Okay.
One generic and a black. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle. Yeah, I thought there was a chance that this might see play in Modern somewhere. I don't think this is going to end up in Yawgmoth. Yawgmoth has plenty of good tutors right now already, so I was a little surprised that this replaced it. But
do you need more?
They came in 15th, so maybe it was working for them.
Sweet. What's up next, Dave? Your favorite?
Well, one thing I did say before we leave Yawg real quick.
Okay.
Real quick, is that I've noticed that tons and tons of people are now sideboarding Cursed Totem in Modern, and that has to do with, I'm assuming, only with Yawgmoth. They're not assuming, like, that's my belief is that it's mostly Yawgmoth. I don't know why it's suddenly become like the sideboard card of choice for Yawgmoth, but because it was certainly available before, like last year, but everybody seems to have suddenly realized that it was printed and wanted to get into it again.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it is picking up some steam for sure. Yeah, activated abilities of creatures can't be activated. 2 mana artifact. Full stop.
Yeah.
Modern Horizons 2.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm excited because maybe I can buy list, the 75 copies of that I opened when I was trying to open Ragavans. I seriously think I have like 7 Modern Horizons 2.
That's funny.
Cursed Totems. So good.
It's like my pile of Obsidian Charmaws or Timeless Dragons or something.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see, I think it was in like Scam. It's in a bunch of different decks that have been trying it out as a way to prepare themselves against Yawgmoth. Maybe it's just because they don't have access to Fury anymore, and so they needed another sideboard card that was more targeted on it, and that's just what it was. And Fury has always been there, so we never really saw it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing to, of course, mention. Maybe an obvious thing, but that's what we do, is it stands to reason that Yawgmoth is climbing the ranks in terms of win rate and perhaps popularity, with Fury being out of the format, right? So it's not something, I mean, Rhinos, of course, typically has a good matchup against Yawgmoth, but if you don't have Fury, then it's going to make that a little bit less good. And, Scam, of course, can't beat it that efficiently. It's got piles of other removal if desired, but yeah, it makes sense that Yawg is going to see a tick up with Fury out of the format.
Yeah, well, I think people anticipated it, and it has indeed come to pass. I do think that people were a little more hyperbolic about how much better they thought the deck was going to get. Like, people were like, oh, it's going to be 60% win rate, all kinds of stuff. But, I guess it was 56, which is good enough. But guess what? Still not as good as the next deck on this list, at least in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Which one's that?
Scam.
It's undead yet again.
Dun, dun, dun. All right, this is the time code that we're going to put in our tweet about this episode, because everybody wants to know what we think about Scam still existing.
You want to say that now? I thought we'd save that for later.
Let's save it for later. Let's just talk about it for now. Its existence has continued. What's the famous line? The stories of its death were greatly exaggerated.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Is that Mark Twain?
Wise from your grave. That's Altered Beast. That's my favorite author.
Oh, dude, that was a good one. Now do one from Ghosts and Goblins.
I don't know any voice samples from that.
Do you remember in Ghosts and Goblins, though, when you get hit, you lose your armor and you run around your
underpants.
That's very
much like
silly.
me at home working.
Yeah, exactly. Every time someone gives you mean criticism, your armor falls off and you're stuck in your underwear.
And everyone laughs. So this.
Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Scam is the same deck.
I mean, without Fury.
Yes, Scam is the same deck without Fury. Look at that. Surprise.
Basically the same. I mean, you get to play Magus of the Moon main deck at this point now, basically stock.
Just a one of, but we didn't give the numbers. So it is also 5.8% of the field, and Scam had the highest win rate of the tournament at 57.5% win rate, as I said earlier.
Of win rate. The win rate share was eclipsing 57.
And the most recent Pro Tour champ, Jake Beardsley, from Pro Tour Lord of the Rings, made the top 8 of this tournament as well on Scam.
Sweet.
Same list as everybody else. There were 2 Scams in the top 8. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's what the deck is now. There's no They took the Furies out. and they just have like 2 Sheoldred, a 4th Voidwalker, and a Magus of the Moon. So they even have the same number of creatures as before. Like, it really hasn't changed.
Yeah, maybe like a Seasoned Pyromancer here and there.
Maybe
you get like
that was the extremely spicy list. Was like, we're gonna put 1 Seasoned Pyromancer.
It's getting spicy.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a little bit more context. Like Molten Collapse did end up being like one copy in most of these decks. Yeah. Very exciting.
Which was kind of what I said. 1 copy.
Wild and crazy things going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that they're playing that. This deck gets to play more Sheoldred and just is better now. Has a higher win rate in this tournament anyway than it did before the ban.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this later, but this tournament is a bit of an outlier, but how long it will remain to be one, who knows? I mean, you put Jake Beardsley in the room, and got to make that win rate go up a little bit.
Sure. I mean, one person made the win rate go up out of 16.
Yeah, enough of one.
Yeah.
But yeah, this deck it's still here, much like every other deck in Modern. It's still here. It's still doing things. It's the same deck you basically know and perhaps love. So
partially. All right, what was next?
Let me scroll down. Okay, we've got Mono White Hammer at 5% of the field, a 47.6% win rate. This is a deck that I have not been looking at all. It does not seem like there's a lot of reason to be looking at it in terms of tournament performances. I think it's basically doing the thing where it has like the 4 Amiria's Call, I believe. It has the sideboard Solitudes, the now $20 Dranith Magistrates in the sideboard. Oof. It's the same concept, and I think it tries to do the same thing, but at this point, people have it pretty figured out, and I don't know. I don't know where this deck finds like a real edge. It does. I think it has a pretty good matchup against Rhinos. So you'd think that it would perhaps do a little bit better. I think there are plenty of ways, and if Stan was in the room, I'm sure he'd be, raising his fist to the heavens, which is just like, oh, I just have a game plan going in. And yeah, I agree, but you have to draw the cards. And yeah, so I think ultimately, why are you playing Hammer? I don't know. Maybe you just love it. But it's not doing particularly well lately.
Does not seem to be doing particularly well.
It definitely has fallen off. It's only like 3% of the meta right now, according to Goldfish over the last month. So, it used to be something much more popular, but no longer.
Yep. All right, what's next?
It makes me keep scrolling around this page. Hardened Scales at 4.3%. Hardened Scales had a bad weekend here. 46% basically. So with 12 pilots, so not a great weekend for Scales. I mean, there's not that much scam in the room here comparatively. Like, it's not like it's 20% of the meta. So you got to pick your spots for where you're going to bust out Scales, and if you think it just has a naturally good matchup against a bunch of stuff, or you're awesome at it or something like that. So is there anything interesting going on with Scales right now, Dave, or is it the deck we know and love?
It's the deck we know and love, although I did see a couple of lists that were starting to actually cut back on the Ozolith and having just a single copy of the 1-mana Ozolith as as more like a Urza Saga target or something, I guess, as opposed to the normal kind of like redundant alternate plan to your Hardened Scales, or something that sort of enhances your Hardened Scales. And I even saw lists that had only a single copy of Ozolith and had no copies of the 2-mana Ozolith, the Shattered Spire or whatever it is from March of the Machines. So they're cutting back on that and really focusing just on Soul Cauldron and Hardened Scales as being the 2 main kind of like payoff cards.
Is there something about Scales that just makes it like an enthusiast deck? Do you think? Like, is this? I feel like Scales is not really the type of deck that people are, and maybe a lot of decks in Modern are just like that these days. Besides maybe like Domain Zoo, like everything sort of seems like a niche deck, right? Like it's maybe not Rhinos. Like I think you can play Rhinos better than other people, of course, but Rhinos game plan is pretty straightforward. But a lot of decks these days, like Murktide, Titan, Yawgmoth, Scam, I mean, maybe not Scam, Hammer, Scales, Living End, Creativity, all these things I think are things that you have to go in knowing your game plan and your matchups. But I feel like Scales is maybe one of the preeminent examples of that. And that's why it's never going to be more than 4.34%. But I'm interested to hear your take as you've been learning it more.
I don't know. I just think it's a power. It's like most decks in, not most, it's like a subset of decks in Modern that have a powerful linear plan, right? And you try to learn the best ways to execute that plan under the most adverse conditions. And that's how, you become a good pilot of it. But you always kind of know what your game plan is, or have an idea of what your game plan is going to be, which I think is sometimes different than like Murktide, where you're not always sure what your game plan is going to be when you're doing it. It's not always the same plan, or it's, am I control? Am I the beatdown? Like, I don't know. I mean, I do think all of the decks in Modern are kind of, I think we've certainly entered a phase of the format at this point, especially after, since it's been so long since Modern Horizons 2 came out at this point, and we're working towards that kind of stuff, that I feel like people's identities or the connections they have with their decks are pretty strong right now. And so it's kind of like, well, I play Rhinos because I always play Rhinos, and that's like who I am mostly.
Yeah. And who's like, more on this later, I think, but like, who's like really buying into Modern right now, besides us weirdos who are always like randomly buying cards? But like, this is what the summer is Horizons 3.
Yeah. I mean, there's a Pro Tour again. Yeah. There was a Pro Tour this year. There was an RCQ season. There will be another RCQ season that's Modern. So I think there's plenty of people who just do it. Also, it's still the most popular constructed format. It still is at this point, against all odds in some ways, but it is the one that the most people play. And I think some of that's just because you get to have an identity with your deck, and the cards, while being inaccessible and kind of expensive, once you're in it, you can seem to get to stay for a long time and all those kind of things. So I do think there's like a natural progression for people that end up here, especially if they play paper at all.
Well, that's where I was going, is like, I think that there's certainly, of course, people who are going to get into a deck now, but I feel like many people who play Modern right now are not buying into it for an RCQ season. They're established players. They have their identity. People are, leaning into that identity and playing the decks they know and love. So I think that's kind of what we keep seeing.
Yeah, although there are a bunch of people talking about how Modern events are starting to not fire in their in their areas anymore, because RCQ season's over and all of that kind of stuff.
That's sad to hear.
So, but I don't know. I feel like we hear anecdotal reports about stuff like that with, fill in whatever format you want every couple of months. So there's a churn to it.
Yeah. I mean, of course, everyone's got to sell their Modern cards to buy into those standard decks these days for the RCQ season.
We're really into it.
Speaking of sad news stories, we have at 2.9%, Living End, 5-color Creativity, Mono Green Tron, all at 40.5% or below. So Living End was 39, Mono Green Tron was 38, Creativity was 40.5. That's not very good.
I'm not sure how we live in a world where Teamer Rhinos was 14% of the field and Living End posted a 40% win rate.
I don't know. I mean, Scam, of course, has a good number of ley lines typically, but that's still only 6% of the field-ish. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's some days chicken, some days feathers, but
60% win rate again. I'm giving some hints about our future matchup grid that we have for Cincinnati, but from mtgdex.net, Living End is 60% against Teamer Cascade, but it was 22% against Rakdos Evoke in 9 matches. It lost to Hammer Time a bunch. It lost to Hardened Scales. I don't know. This is weird. I think it just ran bad on matchups because it does really well against Amulet, Yawgmoth, and Cascade, which were 3 of the top decks.
Yeah. Some days you just don't win. And, to round things out, I guess, in our above 2%, we've got 7 pilots on Mill this weekend with a 30.3% win rate. I don't think I'd recommend playing Mill right now.
Yeah.
Domain Zoo, which we will talk about more in this episode, was about exactly 50%, and 6 pilots, 2.2%, and then Azorius Control featuring Kira at 2.2% with a 57% win rate. Pretty good, small sample size, and then Burn. Only 6 pilots on Burn here, Dave. People are finally perhaps moving off of the lightning bolts and lava spikes. 30.8% win rate.
Are you happy that there was more Mill players than Burn players?
No, I mean, I don't want library burn or burn. it's almost a sad day to see Burn not being a popular deck because I don't have something to rally against and shake my old man fists at. So for now,
can I talk to you for a second about the second best performing deck of the weekend though? With 2.17% of the metagame, 6 pilots, blue-white control, 56.86% win rate, including putting two pilots in the top 8.
Dang, what's this deck looking like 20K?
Right now? It's looking like it's not really blue-white control. It's looking more like it's 4-color control, like it's big Omnath is what it looks like to me. That is what's missing from this list, by the way, when you look at this, among one of a few things, but there's like no Omnath decks on this list.
Yeah, the 6th place deck,
by the way.
6th place deck is not Omnath. This is straight up blue-white control with, the One Ring, Leyline Binding, blah, blah, blah.
Right, except, the joke here is that it's got Leyline Binding. So it's 5-color mana bases. It's got...
It's Omnath-less Omnath.
It's got Fire and Ice, one of them had Fire and Ice. The other one did not have Fire and Ice. One of them was running Fire and Ice. The other one was running a spicy package of Narset, Parter of Veils, and Days Undoing.
Yeah.
So this one was definitely much more... This list by Alex Huang was definitely more of a blue-white control, straight-up blue-white control list. I mean, there's 2 Supreme Verdicts in these decks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Miguel Chavez's deck is like straight out of the history books, right?
Except for the One Ring.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's the only way a control deck's going to get ahead in this day and age. I mean, I think what's interesting is I'm curious how they get out from bad spots with the One Ring. Like, you don't have Karn the Great Creator shenanigans to like go fetch up another one or something like that. So, maybe you just maybe you get rid of it yourself. Maybe you prismatic ending it. Can you even do that?
You return it to your hand with Teferi Time Rattler.
Oh, that works too.
Is what you do.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. You draw into Teferi, then you return it when you don't want to do that anymore. This deck is cool though. I mean, these blue-eye control decks, it was interesting to see 2 of them in the top. They're somewhat similar lists. But I mean, at this point, it's like Teferi Time Raveler, Solitude, Subtlety, One Ring, Leyline Binding, Dress Down, Prismatic Ending. It's just lots of removal.
Yes.
It's a Lorien Revealed, Supreme Verdicts, Counterspell, Fire and Ice, and Force of Negation was the one list. And the thing that was different about Alex Huang's list is that it was running Preordain, Narset, Part of Veils, plus Days Undoing, like I mentioned. But really, other than that, they were the same core of cards.
Yeah, I mean, cool. Do your thing. If there's one thing I can count on, it's some Azorius control type player being at the top tables in an SCG paper tournament.
I was going to say, you really know it's paper.
Yes. Yeah. Can I talk to you about something that's not paper, though?
Yes.
Provide some needed perspective on the world.
Yeah. Or at least a different perspective,
yes,
right?
I mean, I don't actually mean that because this is Magic Online, which is a different universe. Sometimes I honestly don't personally consider showcase challenges to be indicative of the people's metagame. I think typically when we do kind of like it's not an official people's metagame episode. We're not doing a deck dive, a deck dump or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but we are looking at the showcase challenge. It had 300 something players, 380,
343.
That's like 380. So I did some charts and graphs, Dave. You can see them in our show notes. I got the full metagame. We're not going to go in depth as we did Cincinnati because a lot of the same things would apply here. But interestingly, we have black-based scam decks.
Actually, one thing I want to say really quickly is people may not realize that they changed the reporting for deck lists on Magic Online. And we haven't gotten a chance to talk about Magic Online since they did this. I don't know why they did this or if it's going to continue like this or whatever, but they now list every deck
in these tournaments. And in the deck dumps, David.
Yes. They'd list every 5-0 in the deck dumps now.
We have to do it. I mean, this is bad timing now, but our next deck dump episode will be pretty telling because we can actually see like how frequently 5-0 lists are appearing. And like, in going back to Yawgmoth, like a recent one was oodles, gripfuls of Yawgmoth pilots, like just winning 5-0s.
So I think next time we do one, maybe just before or just after the Murders set, the Clue Mansion,
that'd be sweet.
Clue the movie theme set. We could do a dive into one of those for sure, just to see what it's like. How many lists are typically in those?
Oh man,
do you even know?
I don't know. I did not count last time it got dropped. So why don't you go look in Reddit in the background, Dave?
I'm gonna see if I can take a look.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me run through this. We have 20% of the showcase meta were black-based grief decks. 62 of them were Rakdos, but then there's 4 mono black, a black green, which I believe is Dave. Why can't I remember it? It's not Orzhov. What's black green?
Golgari?
Golgari, yes. Golgari Scam, Mardu Scam, and Orzhov Scam. That's black white. So this is a big change here. We went from 6% about at SCG to 20.2% of the field in a scam variant. People were still scamming hardcore at this event. But behind it was Golgari Yawg. That's black-green, by the way. 13.5% of the field. So second place, Yawgmoth. It's like we're at the NRG paper events or something like that back in its heyday.
Right.
So this is our new meta. Is Grief and Yawgmoth, and then right behind it, Rhinos at 12% with 41 pilots, 40 on Teamer, 1 4-color. Pretty conclusive where people are going with their Rhinos decks these days. So this is just more of the same. And then we have Is It Murktide behind it at 10.5. We've got 6% and Titan.
Yeah, we can stop there though. So the decks that were in this tournament that were above 10%, Murktide, Rhinos, Yawgmoth, and Grief. It's interesting to see how much more consolidated this metagame is. I mean, it's like way more. This is 35, 45%, or no, 55% of the overall metagame in 4 decks of this tournament, with Grief being way more than it was in the paper tournament. Way.
For sure. You know what was about the same though? Was Burn at 1.5% of the meta. Like people are even off it on people are off it. They're even off it on Magic Online. No one's bringing Burn to the party.
Yeah, and then you were starting to get into the decks that were below 2%.
Yeah.
Of those, it's Amulet Titan at 6, Living End at 6, Hardened Scales at 3, Domain at 2.6, Coffers at 2.3, Creativity at 2, Mono Green at 2, Blue Eye Control at 2. Like I'm rounding up as we're talking there, with 18.4% of the decks in other. That's every deck that had 6 or more entries was non-other, basically. Those decks even were, I guess the one that's the biggest surprise to me there is that Amulet Titan I thought was supposed to just be way more better in this new metagame, and it is also not really gaining additional scope, although it did win this tournament.
Yeah.
So,
and let's talk about the decks that did well, I suppose, like the X and 2 or better meta out of this tournament. So we had 6 people on Yawgmoth. So that's a pretty big jump here for Yawg. That's 21.4% of the winners. Grief was 18%, just down a little bit. Titan was up 4%. So it went from like 6.5 to 10.7% of the 10 and 2 and better. Rhinos was down a little bit. Murktide was down a little bit. And then, odds and ends to fill it out. So I thought it was interesting that didn't do X and 2 or better from the larger metagame. We had no Domain decks. We had no Coffers decks. We had no Green Tron decks in this X2 or better meta.
Whoops. None.
But yeah, so there's not a lot to get into here. I mean, the Magic Online meta is typically a little bit more consolidated. I think it's a little bit more insular. It's a little bit more self-reinforcing, I think, and people are more willing to pivot more rapidly to, I think, decks that perhaps are doing well, or they can respond more quickly with like a deck rental service, and they can maybe grab cards that they don't have or don't want to buy or can't borrow or something like that.
Yeah, there are 2 decks that I wanted to talk about from this that showed up a little more online, and those are one is Merfolk, which came in 3rd place in this challenge. And the other one is 4-color Omnath, which came in 8th place in this challenge. And it's just worth mentioning quickly. Number 1, green cards aren't good enough for Merfolk still. So nobody cares about Cenote Scout in Modern, which I don't think is a surprise. We weren't going to go that way anyway. Yeah. They have the full disruptive package in here, of course, with like your Tide, your Tide Shapers and your all your stuff.
But Rashad and Dockhand, like just tapping people's lands.
exactly. Yeah, for some mana disruption. They have the other one that is like a Spreading Seas, basically, which is, everybody's kind of familiar with these. Here's the thing. This list that came in third place, 0 copies of Tishana's Tidebinder in the 75.
Whoa, too expensive.
Yeah. It had 4 copies of
Svelin
of Sea and Sky or whatever that card is.
I mean, that's a good card.
Instead. Yeah, but I'm shocked that it's better than and more interactive than Tidebinder. You're playing Merfolk Trickster in this deck already. Do we just it's Tidebinder's like the bigger, better, more effective Trickster.
I mean, they cost less, I guess. It's one card, one faster card on Aether Vial, one fewer pieces of land you have to have in front of you. Maybe it adds up.
Yeah.
Keep it lean and mean.
I will say that the versions that were in SCG did play Tidebinder. So this is definitely an outlier, but I still thought it was interesting. That was one of the best performing ones that we saw. And it was like, I'm not going to play the new, coolest, most recent Merfolk.
No.
Pass.
I just want to be low to the ground and get in there and be weird. I mean, yeah, this is great. I love it. I would definitely not play this, but I respect you out there who do.
Yeah. The other card that's in here is from They have a different Lost Caverns card.
Deep Root Pilgrimage.
They are playing 2x Deep Root Pilgrimage, yes. Whenever one or more, it's a generic and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever one or more non-token Merfolk you control become tapped, create a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token with hexproof.
Wow.
Just generates for value. I'm sure occasionally you get a trigger off of Dockhand as well for when you tap it, but
that's not lean and mean. It's not like this does not seem on game plan to me, but it seems sweet.
Yeah. This is another one where I was like, really? You're going to have that over Tidebinder anywhere? I don't know.
It only costs 2, Dave.
Yeah. It only costs 2.
What else you said?
And
you said you wanted to talk about that. Anything else? I forget.
The other one is just 4-color Omnath, which is, at least as far as Magic Online goes, is back kind of enough to be mentioned. It was 7.1% of the X or 2 better meta, even though it was only, I don't think it was even in the top percentages of the total metagame for this tournament. So it went from being below 2%, I think, of the overall tournament to being 7% of the X and 2 metagame. And part of that is because a Omnath deck came in 8th place in this tournament. And this deck just basically looks like what it looked like before Wilds and without Fury, right? So Fury's gone, Beanstalk is gone, but now we have 4 ring for 4 Beanstalk straight up, which is kind of what the deck was playing before. And then I've seen a number of different things randomly in these decks, but for example, the one in this tournament, instead of Fury, has 2 bolts, Nissa Animus, the like weird one that's hard to get because it's in that tiny weird pack, and then the Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. So these are all cards that have seen play in Omnath at different points in time, and they're just kind of going back to their bag of tricks to be able to do other stuff. Can't do as much card advantage as before, but we can still one ring you.
Sweet. Perfect. I love it. I mean, I appreciate that this deck can and should likely exist in some way, shape, or form for people to play, right? I mean, it's not anything that I'm ever going to pick up, but I don't want people to lose the style of deck if they enjoy it. So more power to you.
Yeah. 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 So Titan won this tournament. We didn't really go over the top 8s of either tournament. It is what it is. I mean, it's fine. Decks. Congratulations to the winner.
Yeah. Santos Cell.
We're taking a 5,000 foot view of the format right now.
Yeah. I mean, did you see any other like cool decks out there? Like this is where I think, we might more easily discover interesting things that are going on, below the top 32 or something.
I mean, I have I'm just looking at Scam, honestly, and I did see 2 interesting Scam-esque lists. Harlan Führer, or Firer? Harlan Firer, well-known SCG player, has a, in their tournament, they came in 19th, I think, or 20th maybe, in the tournament, 18th. In SCG Cincinnati with a Rakdos Death Shadow list that had 28 creatures and a Not Dead After All package and a little bit of stuff. But it was Voidwalker, Death Shadow, Grief, Ragavan, Stalactite Stalker, Inti, Street Wraith, and a couple of Orcish Bowmasters. Pretty cool deck list to see, a little bit more aggressive build Scam, basically, with Death Shadow, which is fun. And then I also saw a mono black Scam list that I thought was pretty interesting. It was Scam, but with the One Ring instead.
Yeah.
It's kind of built a lot
like a Coffers deck.
Coffers, yeah, but with the Grief Scam package in it instead.
Oh, man. I would play this. This lets me use all those expensive cards I purchased. It doesn't. And you know what this does not have? Yeah, it does not have Coffers. So,
no, it's not a Coffers. It's not actually Coffers. It just kind of feels a little bit like a Coffers
my
list.
price on MTG Goldfish, $35 United States dollars. Let's go.
Wow. What do you need to finish it?
I don't have any Shoulders Edict. Do you know those are expensive?
Are they?
They're like $3 apparently. Demolition Field also like $3. So Dave, hook a friend up. Sunken Citadel.
Yes, I have a foil full art one.
I don't want that, but thank you, my friend. Cursed Totems, now $4.50. If you have 7 of those, hook a friend up. Look into your heart.
Listen to your heart. I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know why. Okay, couple of last things that I would love to say real quick.
Please. I'm all ears.
What do you think
will come of that? I don't like the looks of it.
What do you think the most registered card, according to MTG Goldfish, was at SCG Cincinnati?
Okay, we're going back to SCG Con. Well, I mean, I know that there were 39 Rhinos and 22 is it Murktide. I'm going to say lower than revealed.
It was Lightning Bolt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Lightning Bolt. The most registered cards in this tournament were Lightning Bolt, Force of Negation, Ragavan Nibble Pilferer, and then number 4 was Orcish Bowmasters. Number 5, Endurance.
Oh, wait. Murktide does not play Lorien Revealed anyway, so...
No.
Anyway,
yeah, no.
Cool. Good work, Shane.
But the thing that stood out to me was in the challenge, the number 1 card registered was Orcish Bowmasters, and that's what I really wanted to point out was that wow, here we are actually here now.
I think it's a good time, perhaps, to talk about what's going on with Modern overall, and. There's something I think we can talk about Orcish Bowmasters, perhaps, but I think before we get into the nitty-gritty, I think what we really can say after looking at these 2 tournaments, and I think just generally looking at the metagame, looking at some tables on like mtgdex.net or mtgmeta.io, is that Modern is pretty stable. And I think, depending on your opinion, maybe like a bit dull. Right. But like that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like the stalwarts are all here. And this list of stalwarts is long. Like there's Scam, Rhinos, Yawg, Murktide, Titan, Living, and Greentron, Scales, Hammer, Omnath, Burn, Coffers, Creativity, Domain, Zoo. Like there's nothing experimental. There's nothing rogue that's really like peeking its head up. Nothing's trying to shake things up right now. The deck lists, like we talked about, are pretty stable for now. Like, you know, new sets always have a chance to mess with things. But I think largely everything is where you expect it to be. But like that's 14 decks that see a reasonable amount of play in any tournament environment. And then you go to your LGS, you're going to see some more rogue strategies. You know, Spencer in Denver is going to bring some like Winota brew. And I'm going to be like, dang it, Spencer, I came here for practice. And he's like, this is practice. You never know what you're going to see in the early. You're never going to know what you're going to see in the O2 bracket of your next tournament, Shane.
Right.
You know, like all these decks have strengths. They have weaknesses. Like nothing's unbeatable. But there's definitely like every metagame, like better choices to make right now. And so like my first question, perhaps only question for you, Dave, is what do you think about this format right now?
I think people are mad, Shane.
Why are they mad?
I think people are mad that they're still getting grief scammed at the rate that they're getting grief scammed.
The wrong that's what I think. Boy died.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what. Ask anybody what they think about Modern right now, and I think most people are going to tell you that it's the only topic of discussion that there still is really above everything else.
But why?
It's masking the fact that Bowmasters is one of the best cards in the format.
Yeah.
It's masking the problem, potentially problematic nature of the One Ring. Ultimately, we'll get back to that because, a lot of the decks that you just talked about, they have One Ring in them too. Or not a lot, but many do.
Yeah, I mean, like Titan, Tron, Omnath stuff, Coffers,
Blue-White Control,
which is not on my list, but might as well be. But yeah, I mean, okay, the scam thing has to be a point of conversation, right? But like, if I was going to ask you, Dave, without looking at these notes that you're looking at, what is the most winning deck with a reasonable amount of representation since the bans?
Can we look at that compared to what was the most winning deck across SCG Cincinnati and the 10K and the 20K? Since we have that data as well, and that feels a little fresher to me.
I mean, this is 30 days. It's like been only 30 days since the bans. But yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I just mean this. Yeah.
What's our cutoff for like matches required? Like 200, 150?
Sure.
It can't be 200 because there's not that many. So let's say 100. Okay, you're gonna point me to Rakdos Scam with.
I'm not pointing you to it. I'm just saying.
Guiding my eyes.
I often worry a little bit about the data source from MTG Meta.
Why is that?
Like, I don't know where I just don't know where everything's coming from there. Like all of the tournaments that are in it, the quality of all the tournaments that are in it. That's why I kind of just want to look at like the premier level event that had, basically 400 players across two events.
Yeah, I mean,
together.
I guess if we're talking strictly competitive, however competitive you want to look at a 200 something person SCG, I guess it's probably the grinders.
But what was the deck that you were going to give me?
Domain Zoo has 184 matches on MTG Meta with a 56.5% win rate. Again, these are smaller sample sizes actually, but this is of course just since the bans, which took place just over a month ago. And Domain Zoo is 56.5. Rakdos Scam on that same site, 54.7.
Yeah.
Why aren't we talking about banning Territorial Kavu, David?
Because Territorial Kavu does not take 2 cards out of your hand.
Yes.
And make you feel like you didn't play a game of Magic.
I mean, I understand this. This is a straw man.
And also, I do like to play Scam. I've talked about it a lot on here, but like at first I was like, no, they didn't miss. People are just playing too much Scam. They're not gonna put it to wait, what? What's going on? Because now all of a sudden it's like writing and people are like, oh, you mean I can still play my cards? I guess I'm just going to show up with the cards that I had before that I liked before because it's still good.
It's still good. I love this. I love casting these cards. I mean, okay, let's look also, however, at Golgari Yawgmoth. On Meta's website, or Meta's chart, that is the 6th best performing deck out of like over 100 matches. And that's if you want to consider like Dimir Shadow, legitimate deck with 114 registered matches on MTG Meta, 481 matches for Yawgmoth, and 52.6% win rate. Yawgmoth, I think one of the biggest recent changes, and it has had a good number of them, but still sort of maintains its place in the meta game. That's also an Orcish Bowmaster's deck. So are we headed towards a period in time where there's kind of competing issues here, right? Like, I think we can look at Orcish Bowmasters and say, dang, this is a good card. This is a really good 2-drop. There's a lot you get a lot out of this piece of cardboard, right? But then you also have the grief scam thing. I mean, maybe also this is of course, I'm not saying I want this to happen, but let's say that WotC looks at things and it's like, hey, we're going to get rid of Orcish Bowmasters. Maybe that's enough to get people finally more off the scam train because they lose perhaps one of the best 2-drops in the format.
Yeah, they're just going for grief at that point.
But then you just leave, so you just fully leave Yawgmoth alone and doing its thing.
Yeah,
I mean, fine
for a little bit.
Well, I mean, so
a little
you're
bit.
Saying that it sounds like you're saying, Dave, that you believe the format needs a shakeup right now or needs a ban.
I'm saying lots of people believe.
Yes, many people are
and
saying.
I think that the discourse is going to be many people are. So I think you are kind of like modern is stable. Enjoy how stable modern is going to be until Modern Horizons 3.
Yes,
is that where your mind is?
This is my final take that you just said for me. Thank you. I appreciate you just opening that can, which is, I mean, I think this format rides until Horizons 3. I mean, perhaps knowing what comes out in Horizons 3, WotC can take a good look at the format and be like, yo, in a few months, things are going sideways. And we know that this particular interaction is really bonkers. And so we're going to just get rid of Bowmasters now or get rid of Grief now or something like that. But they can also just be like, look, it's not the CQ format. We don't want people to lose the deck that they are enjoying playing because they're going to have to spend $600 for Horizons 3 cards to stay relevant or something like that. So let's just let it ride. Not a lot of eyes are on this right now besides choice podcasts such as ours. So
I think that's certainly possible. I just think that if that's what becomes the only thing we're going to be talking about in Modern for the next 6 months is.
That's a long time. You're right. It's a long time. That's not a short amount of time.
It's a long time. No.
What's?
No. I mean, and there's two more set windows between now and when Modern Horizons 3 comes out.
Yeah, that's the thing too, right? Is we've got 2 sets. We've got 2 opportunities for them to just be like, yo, get out of here. We've got enough of you, Scam, or something like that. Or maybe Bowmaster's a little bit too good. We're going to keep the One Ring as our premier Lord of the Rings card that sticks around in Modern, and Bowmaster's is toast or something like that. But
I don't think Bowmaster's is going to be toast less than a year after it came out.
So you think Grief?
I think if we go back to the well, it's going to be Grief.
Yeah, I mean, it's like fine. It had its run. It's not like, what's the big deal? I don't really like taking out a Living End, but it's not like Living End is near and dear to my heart or anything like that. So let's go back to this, right? Modern is stable. Modern is very stable for better or worse. But again, I just go back to what makes something good or what makes something bad, right? Like if we're talking looking at a deck is too popular, then we talk about Rhinos, right? It's like it has 727 matches on meta in the past 5 weeks, and Murktide is the next best, 20% fewer, 583 matches. Rhinos has a super safe win rate though. It's 51.2. If you're talking about let's talk about a combination of power and popularity, we look at Amulet Titan. It's the 4th most prevalent deck and the 4th most winning deck at 54%. Are we talking about banning anything from Titan, or is Titan get a pass for life?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, besides Summer Bloom. I mean, it's been a minute. I mean, besides, let's be honest, besides Once Upon a Time, which was really what led to getting banned in this format.
Everything. That was so many bad things, right?
Yeah.
Pre-ban Once Upon a Time effectively for what it did.
Yeah, I don't know where you draw a line. It does just feel like people hate Scam is a bad guy. We're going to spend forever talking about it unless it turns out that, hey, it either turns out to get worse because of something that comes out of the next couple of sets or something, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I think it's the fact that a ban took place and it's still dang good, right? And what's weird is it's almost better.
It's not dead after all.
It's not dead after all. What's funny though is this win rate, if you're looking at the MTG Dex one from those few tournaments this past weekend, it's better than it was. Which is. Just maybe people can't target it in the same way, or they're not targeting it as much because it's not 22% of the room, so it can still do its thing. It's.
I mean, there's just variance there too.
I mean, of course,
when we were talking about this kind of stuff, but it wasn't better on Magic Online, I don't think.
How are you looking at the format, Dave? When you're thinking about playing Magic, what are you thinking about playing right now? Are you man, I can't wait to cube with the Chicago friends, or I want to go. On Magic Online and mess with hardened scales, or what do how are you engaging with Magic, and what's driving your engagement?
Yeah, it's more like that. What am I just interested in learning about? What do I want to try? I wish hardened scales is a little better than it is right now, considering I just bought it. I knew it wasn't going to be as good as it was right before the ban. But yeah. I mostly think about Modern in a sense of I want to learn about stuff to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
And if I go play a paper tournament, it would be Modern. It wouldn't be anything else. And then it's a little more casual where it's okay, I'm going to try out Timeless, and I'm going to try Cube. I'm doing all of those things. So I think I am playing a wider array of Magic than I have been the last couple of months, let's say since around this time last year. But Modern, I do think, is pretty stable, like you said. And regardless of whether Scam goes or not, I think it will continue to be stable, is the other thing. So it's really a play experience thing more than anything else that I think. So that's what makes me think that there's a chance that they do just say, forget it. We're not paying attention right now to this right now.
I mean, Modern's where I want it to be, which is essentially I can go to the store. I can have a sideboard plan. I can go see my old friends, Amulet Titan and Grief and whatnot. And, Primeval Titan can come down on turn 2 and destroy me or something like that. But it's I just want to go for the familiar experience, and something maybe Pioneer would be more of a learning experience for me right now because my engagement with it is not as, frequent as Modern. And I think a lot of people want that out of their Modern. Right. And I think in terms of being the people's format, I think both in terms of range of decks and strategies you can play, and sort of comfort you can have just going down to your LGS with like extremely minimal preparation and have a good idea of what you're gonna do and see. And I think it's a perfectly cromulent way to engage with the world's best card game, Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, TM.
Ding.
But I don't think we have any grand conclusions after looking at this. It also doesn't seem like there's any kind of like underutilized assets that everybody is overlooking right now, except for maybe blue-white control, which maybe would be better, but I doubt it if more people picked it up. For what it's worth, blue-white control in the SCG. Okay, in the SCG sample, 35 matches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 71% win rate. Guess what its win rate against Rakdos Evoke is?
Go on.
It's 50%.
And the world's the perfect. It's also 50% against Is It Murktide on MTG Minute.io. So
it is. However, it is 75% against Cascade and 70% against Titan.
Yeah, I mean, I think one could say that Azorius Control is perhaps underplayed. It's 132 matches on meta with a 52.3% win rate. I think like maybe Azorius Control's time is back a little bit, where it's like, hey, Greentron is not very good against a lot of stuff. Let's bring this back out. Let's unearth my supreme verdicts and see what happens.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
No, it wouldn't be. But
I mean, it'd be kind of interesting if that were true. We'll see. Some people will be really excited about this. That's the headline of it. Remember, we put out an episode like 3 months ago, or I don't remember, 2 months ago, that was George Jabeur saying, don't play blue-white control in Modern. And we're like, here we are in the beginning of 2024. And we're like, actually,
maybe this is all maybe this is all George's doing.
Yeah. Maybe have one more look at it right now.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think we came into this trying to make any grand conclusions. We just want to walk through a couple tournaments, walk through some recent data since the ban, tell you what's going on. And the answer is not that exciting, unless you think Scam still existing is exciting, which it is, because it shapes the metagame in a lot of ways around it, especially online. So, yeah, keep your eye on this. I mean, I'm curious how bad things have to get for them to take action before Horizons 3. I mean, maybe we just want to enjoy this sanity and stability for our pocketbooks for a minute. So we'll see what happens.
There's always something trying to get at our pocketbooks. Don't kid yourself.
That's a good point. But Dave, an important thing happened this past weekend. I know you want to take a break. There's no reason to take a bumper.
Yeah,
we don't have an ad bumper.
Break.
Let's go into the pre-breakdown. We'll just call this the dive down this time. So the NRG Championship happened this past weekend. And so 16 players, they all qualified by either winning events or had the most accumulated points on the ladder across the year. And importantly, I do want to call this out. All of these players, so they all showed up. I think they all went to the NRG store, correct?
Yeah.
And
that's where the tournament is.
They all had custom shadow boxes waiting for them with like 3 cards that were like meaningful to that player. They had like an embroidered NRG Championship Series jacket, like monogrammed, very cool. There was $25,000, a Pro Tour Chicago invite on the line. Again, like last year, it was a complicated setup, right? Like there was like 4 pods of 4 players across 2 days with 3 formats. They were 55-minute rounds with 5 turns at time. And because they didn't want draws, the victory was determined by life total, like sort of sudden death at the end of 5 turns. The day 1 was like 2 rounds Pioneer, 2 rounds Standard, 3 rounds Modern, then send some people home. Then there's like double elimination brackets, et cetera, like some complex.
And you can
you had like veto formats
and veto formats against each other.
Yeah, it was funny. It was like each person vetoed a format, and like the format that remained is what got played.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's a lot of Standard that got played this day. Anyway, so like a bunch of stuff happened, and this is a small tournament with 3 different styles of deck. 3 different formats being played. I'm not even going to get into what happened. I wanted to give these competitors a final shout out and send off for the 2023 series, and they were Derek Davis, Steven Dykman, Ryan Hayes, Fletcher Johnson, Theodore Young, Will Kowalczyk, Ben Unger, Matthew Weiss, Eric Burgart, Kyle Gonzalez, Jonathan Hobbs, Matthew Hoey, Chris Smith, Grayson Nemitz, Raja Suleiman, and Daniel Weiser. Congratulations to all of you for making it to the 2023 series. Congratulations to Stephen Dykman for winning this thing in a very convincing fashion. I believe I read on NRG's Twitter that Stephen lost one round all weekend.
Oof.
So,
wow.
Pretty
dominant.
Good. Mid-range for days. He was on Rakdos mid and Pioneer, Dimir mid and Standard, and Is It Murktide in Modern. So if that's when I know someone's probably a much better player than I am. if they're marching out with like 3 mid-range decks and just...
I mean, my indication is usually just they exist. Then they're usually better than me.
Yeah, if they're a functional Magic player, if they play lands and spells.
Right.
So yeah, congratulations.
Stan called me out the other day because I put lands in front.
You did not.
When we were playing against each other for a minute, I didn't even think about it. And he was like, "When did you become a lands in front person?"
You went back to your 90s?
I don't know.
I've never seen.
I think I have photographic proof that I've always been a lands and back person. I think I had just had a beer and was like not paying attention.
That's wild, man. I do want to shout out, NRG for again putting on an awesome tournament series that we were able to look at all year. Keeping tournament magic alive in the Midwest in the Chicagoland area. They are back in 2024. They are having 8 series weekends this year, so up from 7, going to 8.
Oh, nice!
I believe I saw on their page that they said 2023 was a really good growth year for them. 2023 really good growth year for them. So I think that they're really dialing it in. I think, the big reach in 2022, the dialing it back a little bit in 2023, and then growing perhaps carefully in 2024. So but they're going to have $165K in total prize money. The championship prize pool is up to $35,000. There's going to be 24 players making it into the championship this year. And all of this fun begins February 17th to 18th weekend in Chicago, or Chicagoland, which I believe means Mundelein, Pioneer 10K, Standard 5K, and then you can look forward perhaps to Minneapolis, Minnesota in April with Modern and Legacy. So we've got 4 formats in the first few months of the new series. I guess they're also going to have like seasons again, like 2 seasons. So like, whoever wins, you don't have to like try to qualify all year. You can just try to qualify in like the first or second half of the year. So yeah, do your thing. You know who you are. That's out cool. There, Midwest grinders.
All right,
David.
And with that in mind,
want to have like a 30-minute wind down about stuff we've been watching or listening to?
Not this week.
I have been watching the new series of Fargo. It's a good one. I do like that show. Do you want? You don't watch Fargo?
No, I bounced off of Fargo.
What?
Years ago.
You're not a Fargoman?
No, not a Fargoman.
Oh, Dave, I wish Stan was here. I watched an entire season of Survivor. Yeah.
Oh, right.
My wife and I.
Your friend made you go back to like season 7 or something, though, right?
Evan, who I know does not listen to this podcast, absolutely 100% guaranteed does not.
Would have no reason to
listen. But if you're out there, Evan, thank you. So Evan is a big Survivorman. And he was like, and he's one of those people who does not like the new seasons as much because he's like, it's not really about surviving as much anymore. Like you don't have to like fight against the elements as much. It's a little bit more political and less like kind of grind, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, you're still out there for a month or 26 days.
He says it's easier or something. I don't know. But
I think it is. Well, they used to do seasons that were like 30 days.
So it's like 38, 39 days. So I watched season 7, which I believe is a famous one. It's like Pearl Island or something. It's like the Panama one. And like some like a bunch of famous folks who come back in later seasons, I suppose, like, make their debut in the season. And so my wife and I
can't believe you watched a television show from 2003. In standard def. It was
on my like new 65-inch 4K. It looked like it was an abomination.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It was okay. It
was okay.
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't like looking forward to like putting on season 8. Let's just say that. Like,
so you don't want to be in our Survivor fantasy league with me and Stan and some of my other friends.
I will try. I think I would be bad because I don't have a lot of context for who does well. Like who I thought would win or do well was not any of the people. Like I have some thoughts about strategic developments that came out of this season. Everyone's probably turned the podcast off at this time, so it's literally just me and you talking now.
That's fine.
So what I think about Survivor is like don't show. What I learned from season 7 is don't show your hand, but I'm sure there are plenty of opportunities that people had to show their hand in later seasons and still won, right? Which is just never look powerful, never look like you're going to survive, and then you do somehow. I don't know. Maybe that's like a consistent theme.
Here's the season that I want you to watch.
Please.
If you would do one more, even on your own, maybe you should watch.
I do work at home.
This is before the change. Before it got
high
shorter.
def?
So it's 39 days still instead of 26.
And 8 crazy nights.
Yes, exactly. So this is season 32.
Okay.
Survivor Kalrong.
Are there any
which I think is
how many spoilers will I get by watching
Cambodia.
that? Not that it matters.
No, there's no spoilers.
I mean, do they not talk about previous winners like kind of by rule? Like they're not like referencing like, oh, when Brad won.
I don't think you need to worry about it.
I don't really care. So.
Yeah. But season 32 I thought was very good and interesting.
Okay.
They split up people into 3 tribes, brains, beauty, and brawn.
Oh, God.
Against each other, and yeah.
Okay, see,
it's really something.
I can see that. See, that kind of like takes the thing out of it, where everyone's like, "Oh, this guy's really big and strong. Like he's gonna win all the things. We got to get rid of him." So, but if they're all big and strong,
what happens?
They all start hugging. Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know. It was a good season. It was one that I really enjoyed, so I would check that one out. Season 32.
Okay, I marked it down in my notebook. But I think that wraps up this week's show. Dave, I love our episodes. We just get to
fun.
Banter about, if you have not yet and you want to hear more of both our banter and others, including Doomwake and Stanislav, not Stanislav Sivka. Remember when people used to think Stanislav was Stanislav Sivka?
I mean, arguably our Stan is the more famous Stanislav now.
Wow.
At this point, I think Stanislav Sivka has kind of retired.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yes. No shade on Stanislav Sivka, but
no, great career.
And now
not as much endurance as the dive down.
Stan
I guess.
G gets to run with it. So if you want to listen to us as soon as we drop an episode, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Maybe you can do that on Spotify these days, probably. Feel free to leave us a rating, a review, a comment. Tell us how you feel about us on either of those platforms. You want to reach out to us, you can do so at The Dive Down on Twitter or thedivedown@gmail.com. Or I think we even got some feedback like on the Fireside page, I think, this week.
Oh, we got an email. Yeah, Fireside email. It was great.
Thank you. You can support us at patreon.com/thedivedown or our store at thedivedown.com/store. You can support our sponsor, Heavy Play, by using code TheDiveDown2024 on their website. Gets you 10% off your first order there of their awesome deck boxes, dice boxes, playmats, all that good stuff. ManaTraders.com. Feel free to find our latest Mana Traders code in the show notes or on our webpage. We'll try to keep those codes updated, or on our Twitter. You can get 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards using that service. And of course, Nerd Rage Gaming, our friends, just give our listeners 8% off their order at Nerd Rage Gaming with code DIVE8. Thank you, Nowhere. Thank you, Spaceblood, for letting us use your music. And until next week, get out there and scam while you can.